Hello and welcome. In this demonstration, I'm going to walk you through some of the new features and benefits and what's new in OnCommand Insight 7.3 platform, an open platform for your hybrid cloud data center management. So with every release of OnCommand Insight, we have three goals in mind. First is to continue our dominance in the data richness and enterprise scalability. Secondly is to provide increased visibility across your hybrid IT infrastructures while leveraging the latest and advanced analytics. And then lastly is the simplicity and usability capabilities and finding new ways to make it easier to manage your private, public, and multi-cloud environments. Now, the value proposition for OnCommand Insight has not changed. We see our value in three key areas of business insights, intelligent operations for your data centers, as well as your IT ecosystem integration. Now, with the OnCommand Insight 7.3 release, in data richness and scale, one of the things I'm most excited about is our increased Insight server retention. Previous versions of OnCommand Insight, we typically had 7 days of near real-time performance information. Now, in our latest release, we've increased this to an outstanding 90 days of operational trends, allowing you to do week-over-week and even month-over-month trending in the operational client. We have a new increased server scalability with our new Elasticsearch database, which allows for unstructured data to be ingested into OnCommand Insight. We have a new integration framework with the latest release of our new generic SNMP data source, and we're going to go through this in much more detail later in this presentation. We have increased device coverage for cloud platforms such as Azure and AWS, and object storage such as StorageGrid or EMC ECS and Hitachi HCP. And also, if you haven't been keeping up with the latest releases of OnCommand Insight, we also have NetApp SolidFire, OpenStack, and many more. Now, under visibility and data analytics, we've done a ton of work around custom dashboards, creating more flexibility with our dashboards, the drag and drop design, allowing increased capabilities such as grouping and roll-up functions and aggregations of that data. We're going to go through a live demonstration of these dashboards and widget capabilities at the end of this, so be sure to stick around for a little while longer. So under simplification and usability, we've now migrated our auto-host resolution from the Java client or our legacy client over to the new web UI, making it easier for people to get access and manage the devices in their environment. Under the hood, we've made some upgrades to our MySQL database, as well as upgrading JBoss to the latest Wildfly release. We've added some new icons to represent backend versus virtualized storage. We've also added a new section on our host and VM landing pages for NFS VM paths. Now, talking about Elastic, what does this bring to OCI? So in OnCommand Insight 7.3, we've now changed from our existing or legacy Cassandra database to this new Elasticsearch database, which is a distributed RESTful search engine, replacing all of that Cassandra capability for our performance. Elastic is built off that same Lucene technology that we've used in previous versions for our query language, and it gives us a lot of capabilities here, both to scale out to 90 days of performance, but allowing us to do real-time summarized samples on that data in our widgets and query displays. Now, it enables the representation of both structured and unstructured data that's not native to our schema, so it's allowing us to ingest these other metrics or attributes and being able to present them in our widgets and dashboards. This flexibility really stands with OnCommand Insight's open platform philosophy, allowing us to get access to the data and monitor it regardless of where it resides. Now, just to show you a little bit of what the architecture in 7.3 looks like today, you can see here the representation from Elastic here. This used to be our Cassandra database. We still have our extensible MySQL databases as well. And all of this data still rolls up into our data warehouse. So all of that 90 days of operational data or near real-time data will be housed inside the operational server, but every single day these data will be ETL'd into our data warehouse, where you'll get your hourly, daily, monthly, quarterly, year-over-year, long-term, historical, as well as forecasting capabilities. Now let's talk about the increased data retention a little bit here. And in the web UI, one of the things you'll see first on your landing page is you'll see this new time selector for the 30 days. So on any landing page for our performance graphs as well as our widgets, we'll display 30 days of data across those performance graphs. If you want to go and see more data, like 90 days worth, you can go into the custom calendar selector on the right hand side. You choose the month you want to look at and it'll bring up those 30 days. So you can go back week over week, month over month. when you're collecting data points from a device, whether it be 5 minutes, 2 minutes, or 1 minute, you're going to potentially have thousands of data points on a screen. And this could be on a 14-inch LCD or tablet or even a mobile device. And it would make it very difficult to be able to understand the ebbs and flows or those peaks and valleys in performance. So we do a method called downsampling, which I'll explain a little bit more in the next screen. Now, the next step about this is the violation. So you're familiar with those red dots that we put on our timelines when the policy has been violated. You'll still get that coverage in the 30-day views, but what you'll see is a red highlighted section across those performance graphs indicating there was a violation. You want to see the individual violation point, you can drill down into the 7-day or 24-hour period or the last 3 hours, and you'll see those individual violations. So just know that you'll see an area of red across these graphs here when you see a performance problem or a violation, and to get the finer details, just drill down into the 7-day view. So I mentioned this downsampling, and what is that? Well, it's an advanced algorithm that we use to only show the statistically relevant data for the time series. And what do I mean by this? The example I would give you is if latency was 20 milliseconds for the last 4 hours, we're only going to show you a couple of those data points. They're relatively all the same all the way across those 4 hours, so we won't show you the dozens and dozens of data points. We're just going to graph that line across. Now, what you see in this downsampling overlay is the comparison from that real-time data as to the downsample data that we will provide in the 30-day view. So the black line is our downsample, the blue line or the slight blue line behind it is the near real-time data points, and you can see there's a very, very close correlation. Again, if you want to see those real-time data points, all you simply need to do is drill down into the 7-day period for that time frame, and you'll get all of those real-time data points. And again, why we do this is because when you're looking at potentially thousands of data points across the screen, as you can see here under this little magnifying glass, it would be very difficult to ascertain where these peaks and flows are in performance, never mind trying to navigate your mouse over them. So what we've done here is gone down and sampled these down so it's a better view for you. Now, next is our integration framework, and we released this in 7.3. This is our capability to ingest unstructured data into OCI. In our first release here, we're releasing a generic SNMP data source, so you can go out and discover information or metrics from any SNMP capable device, and these could be your Ethernet switches, your bridges, your routers, computer hosts, as well as operating systems and many more. It does require your performance license, so to get that performance information you must be licensed for Perform, and again it will allow you to present all of this data in our queries, our widgets, and our dashboards. You'll be able to put them on timelines and sort them and group them in many other ways. Now, this integration pack has a format that you need to follow to ingest the data. So we're giving you the flexibility to become your own developers in bringing in these metrics. To collect information from a device, you need to have the device MIBs that are provided typically on the internet for most of your major vendors. So you'll collect those MIBs that you're going to retrieve the information from, and then we're going to show you some steps here, and it's about 5 steps to be able to create your own integration pack. So the first step is you're going to use one of our templates or our integration JSON files. We give you some examples so you can understand how to structure these JSON files, and essentially what you're going to identify is the device or the identifiers that you're going to talk to. You're going to bring in various attributes, and then you're going to specify the data points or the values that you want to display. Again, you'll provide the MIBs for all of these attributes that you're collecting from, and then you're going to zip them all up into a zip file and basically import them into OnCommand Insight. Once inside of OnCommand Insight, you'll use the typical data source method where you'll go out and discover that device by specifying an IP address for the asset that we want to discover, and then all of that information will come into OnCommand Insight. Now, this is our first release, the SNMP integration pack here. We hope to have some of these examples on our automation storefront, but we do provide you some examples on our documentation on how to create these. So, definitely take a look at this. We're very excited about this capability to stop bringing in some of this unstructured data. Now, we made some advancements in our data sources. Typically, every release we are touching or manipulating or improving hundreds and hundreds of data sources, but we have some new ones here for you. So we have a new EMC ECS cloud or Elastic Cloud Storage data source. We have a new Hitachi HCP or Hitachi Content Platform data source. We've recently added performance for Azure, so you can take the benefits in our dashboards and widgets. We've also done some enhancements to Hitachi Disk Groups, Tuning Manager for its performance, HNAS, and as well as adding VM and VMDK latency for our OpenStack support. And if you haven't been keeping up with some of the latest releases of OnCommand Insight, we do now have NetApp SolidFire performance and inventory, as well as NetApp Storage Grid and AWS EC2. Now here is an example of a Microsoft Azure performance here. You can see we get the IOPS and the throughput and the utilizations for those. We'll capture all of the inventory data for the Azure availability sets, the Azure compute, as well as the VHD volumes, which would be represented as VMDKs within OCI. Now, with these Elastic or these cloud data sources, there typically is some kind of monetary charge for API collections against them. So both Azure and Amazon will be fractions of a cent to go collect those APIs. There is a notification within OnCommand Insight just informing you that you will incur some monetary charges. Now with Amazon EC2 performance, we will collect a virtual machine EC2 performance, so you'll see your CPU utilization, your IOPS, your throughput, as well as your EBS volumes for IOPS and latency. And your EC2 instances, here's just an example of some of the widget displays that we can now do with our cloud compute platforms. Here you can see we're representing IOPS for our EBS, or maybe they're going to be our EC2 instances. Maybe we want to display these over a timeline and get those into our graph. So a lot of capability with our cloud and hybrid cloud capabilities. And now is our custom dashboards. And in previous versions of OnCommand Insight, we had dashboards, but admittedly, we lack some flexibility there. So in this latest version here, we have a lot of new capabilities with a dynamic layout of the dashboards, being able to drag and drop and resize the widgets to view size. We have context variables, which I'll display in the demonstration. We have a lot of new grouping and filtering capabilities within these widgets that really make these widgets display the data that you want to see. We have about 21 available widgets, which is huge for a product like OnCommand Insight. We have table lists, scatter plots, box plots, and bar charts. We also have a new spline chart and line chart here added here for examples. And again, we're going to go through a demo to show you most of these. Here is the example of the variable widget I mentioned that can go on our dashboards. And essentially, this is going to allow us to filter what is displayed on all of our widgets across our dashboard. Next is our device resolution, and we've always had this in OnCommand Insight, and it's our ability to go out there and discover physical assets in your environment. We do this by looking at your zoning or storage or switch alias information, and somewhere in that alias information is the information about those hosts or tape devices in your environment. Using regular expressions or delimiters, we pluck those names out of those alias informations and then we run it against your DNS. And if we get a match, we'll automatically bring in those physical devices into OnCommand Insight and really minimize the amount of tool time or maintenance time to get those discovered assets into OCI. Now we maintain our FC Identify and IP Identify capabilities for your NAS, and what we've done here is we've added a new device coverage health indicator here to really help you understand how successful you are in discovering these assets. So you can see here in this little image here, we got about 90.45% coverage of these assets in our environment. Some customers want to get 100%. Sometimes there are simply just assets you don't want to discover. So really, we leave it up to you. If you want to discover all of those, we're going to provide you information in our help documentation on how to get access to this. We have a brand new doc center at docs.netapp.com where you can access this information without requiring a single sign-on login, and you can get access to all of this data in examples for your regular expressions as well as your delimiters. Now, I mentioned we also added some new virtualization icons within OnCommand Insight. Now, OnCommand Insight supports your virtualizers such as vSeries, IBM SVC, or maybe even EMC vPlex. And we've always had this capability to be able to present the virtualized storage as well as the back-end storage. So we've created a couple of new icons to make it easy for you to identify the virtual volumes and virtual storage as well as your back-end storage and volumes. Now we've done some work around the usability of bulk actions for our data sources, so allowing you to select multiple objects. Maybe you want to postpone those because of a change activity that you have in your environment, or maybe you want to go through and select a bulk action, select multiple data sources to update a credential. We give you the capability now to select multiple data sources to update those. Here we have our new object storage in our queries. We can bring this into our widgets as well, and I happen to be displaying some of the AWS information in my particular environment, so yet another addition to our query capability. And next we've added a new area on some of our host and VM landing pages, so you'll be able to see those virtual machine NFS paths all in one view, so no longer needing to move to screen. It's all available for you on those VM and host landing pages. So next is going to be the demonstration of the live environment. I'm going to bring up my OnCommand Insight demonstration database and show you how we create some of these live dashboards and widgets. So now that we're logged into our 7.3 demonstration environment, we're going to create our first dashboards and widgets. Now in previous versions of OnCommand Insight, it may have been necessary to go through and create a query. You specify all of the objects that you want to be defined in that query, and then you told the widget to use those queries. Now in 7.3, we made this a lot easier and a lot more intuitive by adding the query capability directly to the widget. So let's take a look at how we do this. So let's go to the dashboard tab here and down to show all dashboards. We can see all of the dashboards that are currently created in this demonstration environment, as well as the owners of those dashboards. So to create our first dashboard, we're going to select Add. Now that we have our new dashboard, the first thing I'm going to do for this demonstration is add a variable. And this is one of those new features that allows us to select or input a variable name, and it'll search across all of our widgets. So we have a number of different options for these variables. We have text, number, boolean, and date, as well as being able to leverage all of the built-in annotations and lists that we have in OnCommand Insight. For this example, I'm going to select text, and you can see that this variable just popped up on my dashboard. And now next we're going to select our first widget, and we can choose from area chart and box plots, but I think one of the easiest ones to get started with and to understand some of these capabilities is the table widget. So let's select the table widget here, and now on the drop down menu we can select from any one of these assets in our environment, whether it be applications, data stores, object storage, and storage nodes. But for this example we're going to use virtual machine. Now in real time we see the information provided to us below. We can also select the ascending and descending orders of these lists. I can see below that I have 174 virtual machines in this current demonstration environment. And now we want to go further and add the metrics to this widget. So we're going to come over here to this column selector, and you can see that we have a lot of information that we can provide in these widgets. So a lot of different performance information, as well as our annotation capabilities inside of OnCommand Insight. So for this example, I'm going to actually bring in IOPS for us here. So we'll select IOPS total. You can see that came up onto the screen really quickly. But I think a faster way to bring in the metrics is just to simply start typing the name of the metric that you want to see. It'll bring it up in the search window, and I can select it very quickly here. Let's maybe add throughput into this for our virtual machines, and maybe even CPU and memory. So let's grab the CPU utilization as well as the memory here. So very quick to get these metrics into the widgets, and now I can actually save this, and you'll see that the virtual machine information is stored across this widget. So let's go back in here because we're not done with this widget. We can come in here and edit this widget. I want to give this a name for this widget, so let's call it VM Performance. There we go, and now we want to go through and add some more filters. So inside of OnCommand Insight, we have this filtering capability where we can go through and maybe filter this down on a specific performance metric or for a specific data center location. So for this one here, I'm going to bring in latency, and now we're going to make this a little bit more refined by just focusing on virtual machines that have latency greater than 5 milliseconds. So I'm going to select 5 there. We could specify a range for our latencies. So now you see that the latency totals here have updated, so we're only showing virtual machines with latency greater than 5. And now we can also come over here and use the grouping function. So dropping down this menu here, we can select the cluster, or maybe we want to do it by the environment, only look at virtual machines in our production or development environments. I think for this example, I'll use applications. So we're going to group these virtual machines up by their applications, so you can see the number of virtual machines that are assigned to our customer feedback applications or our exchange applications or even our ERP systems. So now that we have this saved here, I maybe bring this out and show more than 5 on that screen. I want to show my 20 on the widget displays, and I'm going to select Save. So there we go. We have our first widget. Now I'm going to go in and create my next widget. So let's come in here again to add a new widget, and we're going to select Scatterplot. I really like this widget here, and we're going to do VM IOPS versus latency. So let's select that there. We're going to create our widget. Again, we're going to look at virtual machines. I'm going to analyze the total IOPS versus the total latency for these virtual machines, so you can see how this is working here. Right now it's rolling up those values, but maybe I want to look at the averages for those virtual machines. And again, I want to break this all down by name, so I want to look at the individual VM resources, and let's show the top 100 here. So we have this on our screen, and why I like this widget so much is it really helps me prioritize my time and my activity. As I can see over here on the left-hand side, these VMs are seeing a lot of latency, but they're not generating or driving any real workload or I/O. Compared to these virtual machines that are driving I/O and seeing latency, these would be the ones that I would concentrate on first. So I really like this widget. I'm going to come down here and select Save. And let's just drag this over to get it a bigger viewing area. And again, these are dynamic drag and drop, so I can move these around in different areas here. And now let's move to our last type of widget type here that we'll do for this demonstration, and bring in a line chart and show you how that works. Now I could stay with the virtual machines, but maybe let's do data store for this, so we don't have to stay on the virtual machines. And let's show VMDKs with this as well. Let's show you how that works. And get that back in there. There we go. So now we have VMDKs and data stores. In my drop-down menu, I'm going to add data stores, and let's look at the data store latency. So we'll keep that there. And we're going to look at the average latency, and again, break it down by name, because we want to see all those individual data stores. And let's look at the top 5 here. So we can see our top 5 data stores with our latencies here. You can see those are quite high. Now I'm using a line chart right now, but I can change this to an area chart or maybe a stacked area chart. So let's select area chart for this. Makes it a little easier to see. And now I'm going to add a new metric to this, and I could use storage, but for this example I'm going to bring in virtual machine or VMDKs. And I'm also going to look at the latencies for these. So let's bring in the latency totals for my VMDKs. I'm going to change the axis on this. So now you're going to see these lined over here, or these lines on the screens. And now I'm also going to bring in average and break this down by name. So we show all the individual VMDKs. So you can see I have 2 axes shown here. One is displaying an area chart, the other is line charts. And if I look over these really closely, you can see I have those individual lines for my VMDKs, and then these area charts in the back are my my data stores, where I can see there's definitely some correlations in VMDK latencies to the data store latencies. So now I'm going to select Save, bring this widget down, give it a bigger viewing area. Let's drag this over a little bit here. Maybe move it over to the side. There we go. Or even bring it up to the top here. So there we go. We can see this. We'll stretch it out, make it the same size as our table widget, and it's very easy to see. Now, I mentioned this variable on the dashboard. Now, how does this work? Now I can come into my dashboard widgets and add the variable function. And I want to be able to search all of these widgets by name. I could put in a number of different variables. I could use the data center option here, so just searching virtual machines in a particular data center. But the name one I think really is easy to understand. So let's bring in the name option here for the filter, and you can see here it says any. By selecting this, I now have the capability to bring in the variable. So I'm going to select the variable and just simply select Save. Now when I come over to my dashboard, if I were to want to be able to view a specific virtual machine on this dashboard, I could simply type in the name. Let's look for our Epic virtual machines in this environment. Select check here, and you can see that this top dashboard updated to show only the virtual machine that has Epic in the name. So that's how easy it is to do. Now we can go back in here and do the same for these other widgets. Just add the name filter in here, bring that in, select the variable, do the same for my VMDKs, and you can see just how easy this is. So bring in that variable, select save, and the last thing would be to do it for my scatter plot as well. Bring this in, select the variable name, and select save. So you'll see that these widgets have already updated before I could even hit save here. So they're just showing the individual virtual machine. If I want to back this out and show all the virtual machines yet again, it's an easy way for me to get the information and filter out that noise and use the same dashboard to basically do multiple things. Now we can also do something else on these dashboards. So you're looking at the last 24 hours. If I were to select this time range, you'll see that these widgets are updating dynamically based on the time frame that I selected. So right now we're looking at the last 24 hours for all of our data, but say we don't want this timeline to change, or maybe we want to focus on a different period. So we can come in here to the dashboard, and I can actually select this button here that says override the dashboard time. So I'm going to select that, select the 7 days option here, bring in 7 days of data. And now you can see regardless of what time I select on my dashboard, that widget is only going to show 7 days of data. It will still continue to work with the Epic filter that I put in here. So let's bring that in. There we go. And you can see now it's updating with just the Epic filter, but it's still showing 7 days worth of data. So my next step would be to save this dashboard, and we're going to save this dashboard as what's new in 7.3. And save that dashboard, and there you go. You see how simple and easy it is to do, and you can do this on any of the objects in our dashboards and queries. So I hope this demonstration was easy and helpful for you to understand some of the new features in 7.3. If you want to learn more, feel free to reach out to your NetApp account representative or your OCI specialist in your location. Thank you and have a great day.